Hey folks, not long ago I made this tank. It's a 43 gallon, it's high tech, it's got lots of little devices connected to it. I'm going to tell you how all those are doing right after this. Hey folks, it's Pecktec and I'm back again. So this tank was set up about 4 months ago, and it's got a lot of a lot of components to it. I actually put a lot of different things, implemented a lot of different products and different techniques into this tank, and I thought it'd be good to do sort of a 4-month update to kind of let you know how all that's playing out. Before we get too far in, I'm going to subtly move over here and give a big thank you to all my Patreons. All of these people help me so much, week in, week out. Just a little bit of extra help to kind of get the ball rolling on some of these projects that I need to do. It makes it so much easier to work knowing that you guys believe in me and you're willing to put a little bit extra into this channel. I really appreciate it. Very soon, you guys are going to have exclusive access to the new Water Change Companion season. I'm making season 2 of that right now, and it's going to be available to you guys first. Of course, the latest addition to this tank was adding a bunch of fish from Aquashella that I just brought up. Man, there were so many fish. There was a lot of them. They kind of dominate this tank now. When I built this tank, I was a little upset that I didn't include more colors. Like especially looking at it from a little bit of a distance, it's really green. I did manage to get a lot of different leaf textures and leaf shapes and stuff like that. So as you come in, and especially in person, I think even more so in person, it's a little bit like there's a little bit more for your eye to process. But from a distance, especially if you squint or you have bad vision, it's just this sort of green, this massive greenness everywhere around that tank. So adding so many of these bright yellow and red fish, or yellowish orange fish, really helped bring a lot of color into this tank, and I've been very happy with them. Of course, I've also got threadfin rainbows and the little dwarf rainbows, which have that blue color, and I've got my endlers, which are sort of this yellow and black color. So there's a lot of different, colors in here. Of course, I've also got lots and lots of the orange shrimp, and they're doing really well. I really like those shrimp. I've got them going in a bunch of different tanks. Well, they're thriving in here, and I'm seeing more and more of them every day. I also added a bunch of Amano shrimp from Flips Aquatics. I ordered about 10 Amano shrimp, and they're doing their thing. They're a little bit harder to spot because they're clear and there's a lot of area for them to be in, especially deeper down in the tank there. But I do see them out on the rocks and stuff occasionally, and always enjoy seeing them out and around. I have a Hillstream loach that I never see. What's odd is I have one upstairs that's always out. It's out all the time. And I have this one, which I thought had passed away, but is in reality just hides a lot. I'll see it more when the lights come out. If I happen to be kind of looking in the tank after the lights go out, I'll see it running around then. But that's about the only time I see it. So let's break down the components that I used for this tank. So probably the component that got the least amount of love and attention on the setup of this tank was the UV sterilizer. Fluval had sent me a really cool inline UV sterilizer a while back. The problem is it's sort of notoriously hard to film because it's right in the back of the tank, and it was sort of I had to implement that before I put this into place, or it'd be a real pain. So I didn't get a lot of footage of actually installing it or anything. I do have it installed, so it's just like a little brick basically, and water goes to this sort of U shape and gets exposed to UV light, and then comes out the top. And then off of that is a little remote where you can control the amount of time that light's on. I keep my light at about 4 hours a day, and so for about 4 hours a day there's UV light interrupting the water as it comes back into the tank from the canister filter, and that should keep that thing running for a really long time. A lot of comments from that UV filter especially were people were upset that you couldn't see some indication that the light was on. The little remote has a little light on there that indicates that circuit is up and going. So you can use that as sort of a replacement window. I agree it would be kind of more intuitive to have like just a little clear piece of plexi or somewhere in there to see that light shining, and I would prefer that, but that's not the way they did it on this. And the circuit breaking will cause the little light to go out on the remote, so you kind of got that instead. Another comment on that UV filter is that it's not used replaceable. Like when it's broken, it's done. Basically, I think at the price point and the amount of years that you get with that particular LED UV light, I think it sort of evens out as far as like, you know, having something maybe cheaper, but you could replace the bulb. It was an interesting trade-off that they made with that. But I keep my hours down, and even if I took it up to maybe 6 hours, which I'm considering doing, even if I kick that up to 6 hours a day, it'd still be many, many years running every single day before it ran out. So best I can tell, it's working really great. UV lights are great for not only algae control and other mysterious things that come out. What it'll do is it'll sterilize them so they can't reproduce, and things like ick and stuff like that. It'll sterilize it and kind of stop the cycle, or help stop the cycle. In fact, the UV light, in combination with like a surface skimmer, like I also implemented on here, those two things in combination can really go a long way towards preventing fish leukemia, because the stuff that causes that tends to lurk on the surface of the water or real near the surface of the water. And so it's being taken up by the canister filter and then blasted by the UV, at least for a percentage of time during the day. It's been blasted by UV as it comes back out. So that kind of helps clear some of that out as well. So as we move down past the UV filter, we've got the canister filter, and on here I've got the Awase Thermo 350. Thermo 350 is a canister filter with a built-in heater. So the heater's built right into the canister filter. It's all in one unit. And because of that, the heat stays really consistent. I really love having the heater down there and out of the tank. It's just one less thing to deal with. I know that water's flowing past it without having to kind of set it up in some kind of weird way. It stays real consistently warm in every part of the tank in here. I really like that. Thermo 350 also has removable sponges. Like that part on the left just comes straight out, and you can pull those sponges out and clean out the filter, the pre-filter. I find the thing that works best for me is to get two sets of the filters, and you just kind of dump one in the sink and the other one you put on there, and you can just rinse it out in the sink or whatever you want. Let all the stuff, the chlorine and stuff, evaporate off of it, and then it's ready for next time. So I just swap them out, put the other one back in here. One thing I have noticed, if you want to use that feature, it's good to have a cabinet with a lot of headroom inside, so you can pull that thing all the way out. It does require about as much space as it is tall. So if you've got double the height of this canister filter, you'll have a really easy time. Or you've got something like, sometimes I think Awase actually makes a cabinet where you can pull that tray out and kind of get it out from beneath the cabinet and then pull it out. I happen to have a lot of room in here, so I can pull that thing right out and swap those things out. It makes for a real quick cleaning of your pre-filter and the canister filter. So I do it a little bit more in here than I would in a typical canister scenario. So as I move over, I've also got CO2 running in here. It's a pretty simple CO2 system, and it's running as expected. I love all the little glass pieces and stuff. They're really working out really well. Another thing I implemented in here was the Slim Wave, and the Slim Wave is a little bitty, it's a little propeller that connects to the back there, and it's blowing, and it's a circulation pump, and it's blowing the water through here at like irregular intervals and kind of making waves at times and going real fast and slowing way down, and just does different things during the day. I've mainly got it to distribute the bubbles and stuff and provide a little bit of a current through the whole tank and make sure all the water is getting pushed through all these thick foliage and stuff, and kind of letting the nutrition kind of go evenly around the tank. It also provides this little current, and what's interesting is the fish, they tend to stay right here in the front, and they swim in that current all day long. It's really interesting. The other thing is it's pushing all the bubbles from the CO2 all over the tank and stuff. I really love it. I wasn't sure if I was going to implement this long term, or if that was going to be kind of a short term thing to just try it out, but I really have kind of gotten to like it. I've noticed my algae has been a little bit reduced since I put that in there, and I think it's kind of helped things out. Another bit of tech that I implemented on this that goes in with the canister filters, I guess, is the glassware that I use for both the surface skimmer and the return. The return is still looking pretty nice and clean. It's sort of in the shadows over there, so I think it's not getting a lot of algae issues because of that. But and then the surface skimmer is starting to look dirty. Of course, that's where most of the water is coming through, and it's super easy to clean. I just need to get in there and clean it. But it is actually connected to the under gravel filter. Using an under gravel filter in this way, in combination with the surface skimmer, I think is working great. Like, I've had a really, really stable system. Yes, I've had some algae problems and stuff like that, but it's all seemed really pretty common, and nothing that's, like, I would say is outlandish. I haven't had any really out-of-hand problems in this tank at all. And that's really unusual for something with this much substrate going on. It's really thick substrate in here. With this much substrate going on, and the amount of just separate plants, and just the sheer volume of fish in here, which is more than almost any other tank I've done. Those combinations should have amounted to a real nightmare for me, like if it wasn't working properly, and it is. So I got really lucky there. I feel like I can't tell you specifically if kind of using some of those anoxic filtration techniques help me completely, like to what percentage that they help, or if they're just going to be another combination of things that worked in here. But so far so good, and it makes me, every time I have a lot of success with like the plenum and incorporating a plenum into my tanks, and I keep having success with it, and so I'm just going to keep doing it, I guess. I really like it. I mean, I don't 100% understand every bit of everything that's happening in there that makes it work, but it's worked better than a lot of other things that I've tried to do. So as far as the anoxic part of this, the under gravel filter and all that, it's working great. Another thing I did for this tank is I cut a piece of glass to fit over the top to kind of help cap the evaporation, or kind of keep the evaporation under control. It's done great. It's really, really great. I didn't cut the entire piece. Like, there's a small piece on the back that kind of always stays there. And I wanted it to be more elaborate and kind of go between like the other parts, things that are going in and out of the tank, but I couldn't get my glass cut that way. And I did leave this a little bit short so that there's a hole in the front that runs along the top right here. And I just do that so it's really easy to feed the fish from there. So I was putting the food in the back and let it kind of blow around, but the stuff that stays on top was sort of fast tracking it over to the surface skimmer, and I wanted to avoid like sucking up all the new food. A modification I had to make to the surface skimmer was I put a little bit of this mesh, and basically it's window screen mesh. I put a little bit of that around the edge of it, and it's kept the babies and the little shrimplets from getting caught in there, because I was catching quite a lot of shrimp through there. I guess as we pull back too, we've got the tank itself. This glass is fantastic. Once this thing balanced out and things started to get really, the water started to get really clear, there's definitely nothing in the glass holding it back. It's a really vibrant tank to look at. Like, the colors just pop out of there. It looks great. Like, sometimes it's hard to tell from the quality of the glass, you know, from one tank to another, but I really see it in this. I really love the low iron content of this tank, and I love the shape of it. I love black silicone on the edges and stuff. I just think it's really stylish, and I really have been really excited to own this 43-gallon from 7 ports. I think it's a really, really neat tank. The plants have been doing really good. I think the substrate combo has worked out the way I'd hoped it would. And what's really probably the most interesting thing is the 4-leaf clover. Like, in areas where it's dark, it'll send up these long shoots. So I'm getting these giant clovers all throughout here, and it's gotten really thick. In fact, where I've gotten a lot of algae issues has been kind of down here, where it's kind of gotten really thick with those clovers, and they've gone over each other, and there's huge clumps. At times I've been pulling out little clumps of them here and there, and then letting it grow back together and stuff. So if it looks like over in here, they're starting to get a little bit algae in between and stuff. So I'll go in there and sort of pull it out. And I've sent some to friends and people all over the place too. I kind of wish I hadn't planted the dwarf sag. It's starting to get really tall and viney up here and starting to work its way to the front and get into places I don't want it. So I'm probably going to go through and just pull all of that out and just get rid of it and let it all be the clover, because I like it better anyway. I wasn't expecting it to do as well as it did. And a lot of the sword plants I added to this really didn't do that well. That's fine, but I thought that was odd that the sword plants didn't do as well as some of these other things. The Anubias is doing what it does, just growing really slowly and turning into thick clumps and blooming and doing all this stuff. It's great. Somehow or another, I've come upon this variety of Java fern that's really, really enormous. So in the 210 over here, it does really well, and it's a pretty neat addition. But over here, it's just these giant leaves and stuff. So I'm probably going to deal with that at some point in the future. Maybe move them over to the 210 or some other place. But man, in the CO2 and the light being right there, they've done super well. Like, they're the healthiest Java fern I've got anywhere, I think. I guess the last thing to talk about is the Kessel light. And the Kessel light is tied in with the lights on the 210. All those lights are tied together. It's one of the smaller tuna sun lights. Nothing super special about that. It's small. One of the smaller, older tuna sun lights. And it works great. They all work great for growing plants. Well, they work great here. I'm not having such a lot of fun in the 210, but we'll get to that in another video. Hopefully, I've covered most things that you might be curious about in this tank. I do have a timestamp down below if you need to refer to something else or skip back to something else. Feel free to leave a comment in this video. Let me know what you think, or if I missed something and you want to know more about it. Also, there's a playlist specifically for the setup for this tank. So if you want to see in more detail, I went into great detail about every step along the way putting this together, and you can see it all there. But until we meet again, follow your bliss, keep a clean tank, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Feel free to leave a comment on this tank. Feel free to leave a comment on this video. Let me know what you. Hey folks, not long ago I made the 43-gallon. Hey folks, not long ago I made this tank. It's the 43-gallon. What else? What else? In fact, that in combination with something else I implemented on here, which is a protein, or it's nice to have a cabinet. This cabinet has to have, it's good to have a lot of cabinets. One thing I have noticed, if you want to use that feature,